Welcome into Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, where in the world is Phillies reliever Gregory Soto? And how long will it take for his visa issues to potentially get resolved? And how much better are you feeling about the Phillies now than when spring training first started? We'll discuss on today's Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, the Odyssey app, Apple Music, Spotify, all that good stuff. Wherever you find your audio and visual content, for that matter, you can find Locked On Phillies. Go ahead and check us out on YouTube. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing. I really appreciate all of that and your continued support. Let's jump into today's episode because I was thinking today, it's kind of a slow day, right? You had the weekend games for the Philadelphia Phillies down in spring training, but that initial pop of excitement for spring training is kind of worn off. And starting this week, the World Baseball Classic is getting going. So players like Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto and Ranger Suarez and Jose Alvarado, these guys are all taking off to play for Taijuan Walker, taking off to play for their respective countries in the World Baseball Classic. So our focus will be very much more on that than spring training. And I don't know. I was just thinking, what in the world, like what's the big story surrounding the Philadelphia Phillies right now that I could talk about? Because there's only so many times you could talk about a guy like, will Weston Wilson make the team? Or who's this young player who had a home run in yesterday's spring training game? Like, that's fun, and we'll do more of that. But today I wanted to bring something a little bit more relevant to the Major League roster. And the one thing I kept coming back to is, where's Gregory Soto and how's he not here yet? So I'm going to do my best to try and explain what's going on with the Gregory Soto visa situation. Here's the answer. No one seems to have any idea. I did a Google search. I looked up his name. I looked up visa. I looked up all the stuff. And the most recent updates from any credible news source was like 2 weeks ago. There's just no comments or anything, just that Soto has not reported to camp yet and don't know when he's going to report to camp. He just recently pulled out of the World Baseball Classic. He was supposed to play for the Dominican Republic and did not make the trip for that because he can't get into the country. I don't understand what's going on with the visa stuff. I'll tell you what the deal is, though. So as far as from the Phillies' perspective, and this is me guessing because this guy seems to be harder to track down, and information about his visa and what's going on with that situation is harder to track down than like an international spy would be. Gregory Soto could be on the moon for all I know right now. I know one place he's not. He's not in Clearwater, Florida, and that's where the Philadelphia Phillies need him to be, especially since they traded Matt Vierling and Nick Maton, who Vierling had a nice game the other day against the Philadelphia Phillies in spring training when the Tigers came and visited the Philadelphia Phillies. They had a nice home run and everything, so got to see some old friends in that game. I'll talk more about them a little bit later on in today's episode. But yeah, I don't know where Gregory Soto is as far as why he can't make it into the country. It seems to be like some paperwork issue. One thing we do know, Ranger Suarez had an issue similar to this last year. Ranger Suarez made it to camp. Ranger Suarez was fine for the regular season. Ranger Suarez was ready to go. He had the visa issue that was talked about. He got into camp and everything's good. Now, the Soto thing could be even more downplayed by saying that he's a relief pitcher. So unlike the Ranger Suarez situation where you needed him to come and get starts in and stretch his arm out and be ready to throw multiple innings and everything like that, it did give Suarez a little bit of a slow start to his season. You remember the first couple starts of the year last year for Ranger Suarez were not great. But he worked out of it and he ended up having a good year, is my point. As a relief pitcher and as a potential closer for this team, Soto is going to take less time to stretch out and get ready for game action than what a starter would. So that's a benefit. The other thing that I know is as far as the amount of time necessary, as long as Soto is continuing to work on stuff by himself, where he is now, without being able to report to camp, realistically, he should be able to get ready to throw in game in 2 weeks. The time in between pitchers and catchers reporting and the first time they play actual games is about a week and a half, I believe. Maybe a little bit more than that. It's about a week and a half. So if he gets in 2 weeks ahead of opening day, which is coming up at the end of this month of March, we're good. We're chilling. So I'd say that I'm looking at March, just to put an arbitrary day on it. What's the day? I'm recording this on Monday. So it's Monday, March 6th. I need him in Phillies camp by next Wednesday, by the 15th. And if he reports by March 15th, dead middle of the month, I'm feeling good about his chances to be ready for opening day. If not, you start to get into that weird category of, man, we just traded for this guy. He doesn't really know the team. He hasn't been in camp. He hasn't had a chance to throw against competitive batters yet. Didn't play in the World Baseball Classic. What in the world's going on? And even if he comes back the 15th, the World Baseball Classic goes to the 21st. He could not meet some of his teammates until really like a week before the season starts, which is not ideal when you go ahead and acquire a young player for a pretty costly price when all things are considered and what the Philadelphia Phillies normally give up. Not that Nick Maton and Matt Vierling are world beaters, but you gave up two guys who played on the Major League roster last year to bring this guy in here, on top of Donnie Sands, who's a catcher that played like 3 innings at the Major League level last year. So you gave up stuff to get this guy. He should be in camp, and you got to work out the visa issues. But that's the date that I put on it to feel comfortable for him to get here. I'm going to keep an eye on that because there's a lot of other news floating around there. It's easy for something like that to get lost in the shuffle. And it's not easy for a manager like Rob Thompson or the organization for the Philadelphia Phillies to know what's going on either. They don't have someone down there that's like at the embassy trying to get Gregory Soto in the country, I believe. I think it's on him and his camp to file the visa work and get everything squared away there. He's going to be here. Just the closer we get to opening day, it makes me a little bit more worried. And I keep thinking, hey, when are we going to get that update? And when I looked it up today and I saw that there hadn't been an update from the team or the organization for like close to 2 weeks, I was like, oh, wow, we really need to address this on the podcast, give you an update as to what we do and don't know. And what we do know is very, very little. So as we await other news, namely the Andrew Painter injury news that is still yet to come down at the time I'm recording this, definitely keep an eye on what's going on with Gregory Soto because he's going to be a huge part of this bullpen, and how soon he can get to camp is going to really determine how much confidence Rob Thompson and his teammates are going to have in him come start of the season. So that's a interesting storyline of camp that, as days go by, may shift more to the forefront. Or hey, who knows? Maybe he'll report to camp tomorrow and everything will be fine. So I'll keep you updated on what's going on with Gregory Soto and all of that as we continue through spring training. But that was the pressing thought of the day when I thought about what's going on that's relevant and interesting about the Philadelphia Phillies down at spring training, or the Philadelphia Phillies that are not yet down at spring training. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about, some young pitchers, and not really Andrew Painter. I'll talk a little bit about the elbow and everything there. And I want to get into some of the other guys who are in that conversation that have been overshadowed by Painter to this point, and why you should not sleep on the impact that they could potentially have for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2023. Okay, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. Listen, the Phillies can get away with having a guy with visa issues. Your small business might not be able to. You need these people ready to work, available, and capable of doing the job you're hiring them for. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. That's the best. Listen. You've got to go ahead and get the year started. We're in that first quarter of the fiscal year. You got to get everything all squared away so you have a strong jumping off point for your company in the first quarter to build success through the rest of the year. And the only way that you do that is you bring in the right people for the new jobs that you have available. You can add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. There are simple tools like screening questions to make sure the right people are getting to your page to see the openings that you have at your company. And it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So go ahead and check out LinkedIn Jobs because they help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Okay, so I've kind of already told you this in today's episode, but yes, we are still not seeing an update on Andrew Painter and the elbow soreness. We were supposed to get an update yesterday. That update did not come. Rob Thompson had nothing after the game. I don't understand what would take so long for the tests to come back unless there's something. This is me totally guessing. This is not me reporting anything. This is not me trying to play doctor. This is me trying to guess why, when the Phillies said we'd have an update yesterday, that we didn't get one. That to me sounds like an inconclusive test. I don't think they're sitting on anything. I don't think they know already and they're just afraid to tell the media. Like, who cares? If the kid's got to have surgery, the kid's got to have surgery. If the kid's fine, the kid's fine. If everything in between, whatever, just tell us. Like, that doesn't seem like a very Rob Thompson or this setup of the Philadelphia Phillies, the people who are currently in charge of running this organization. It doesn't seem like their type of thing. I trust them to tell us what's going on, and we haven't heard anything from them yet. So to me, that sounds like an inconclusive test. Sounds like they went and did the MRI or the MR arthrogram or whatever, the X-ray, whatever test they're waiting to come back. And they're like, we didn't get a clear enough picture this time. And what it could be is an MRI to an MR arthrogram. I don't know. See, I don't know this stuff. But I'll tell you, when I had a partial tear in my UCL, I had it twice. One time they saw it through an MRI. One time they needed an MR arthrogram, which was an injection of fluid. So they injected my elbow with fluid, so it kind of like lights up on an MRI and clearly shows if there's a break in a tendon or ligament, or a tear, I should say, in a tendon or ligament, so you can see better, lights up the picture better. So maybe that's the case. I don't know any of this stuff. All I know is we didn't get the report we wanted, and a lot of people are freaking out about Andrew Painter. And frankly, I'm kind of one of them. And it may be as simple as, hey, that MRI didn't come out clean. We'll get you back in tomorrow. He had plans to do something else. He feels fine. The issue with not getting updates when you say you're going to get updates is the fan base is going to freak out. It doesn't mean, though, for sure that anything's better or worse than we originally thought. Do your best to try and keep calm, keep a cool head, and wait for the report from the team or Rob Thompson or whoever goes ahead and gives us our update on Andrew Painter. I'd imagine it comes from Thompson. But try and stay calm until then. Keep an eye out. I'll let you know as soon as I hear anything. Twitter, I'm sure, will blow up as soon as someone says something. So just go ahead and stay locked in. Try not to think any crazy thoughts. I had someone already tweeting at me about get the Tommy John surgery out of the way now. Like, no, we're not going there yet. Just wait and see what they have to say about Andrew Painter. Hopefully we'll have an update today. I find it hard to believe we wouldn't by the end of the day today, and I'll address that in tomorrow's episode. But yeah, so deep breath, try and calm down. It could be as simple as like the MRI was inconclusive or something, if they didn't get a good enough picture or whatever. So we'll go ahead and wait on that and discuss that later. But I'll tell you what, there are two other pitchers who were in that conversation. And Andrew Painter has become the top dog, like easily, far and away. Just shot to the top of MLB top prospects list when it comes to pitchers, top prospect in the Phillies organization, top pitching prospect in all of baseball. Like, we know this about him. But you transport back to a year ago or a year and a half ago, excuse me, you transport back to a year and a half ago, and you're looking at guys like Andrew Painter, Mick Abel, and Griff McGarry all in the same conversation. Those were the guys, the young pitchers that you saw. Mick Abel and Andrew Painter were drafted in 2 first rounds back-to-back. So Abel was the year before Painter, and Griff McGarry was a guy in the organization that was a little bit ahead of these guys. He's been in AAA. The other two have not yet been in AAA. So I know Andrew Painter has overtaken the narrative, but Griff McGarry and Mick Abel have both thrown in spring training, and they both look pretty darn good. Mick Abel through this weekend, and he had I believe, a perfect first inning. Griff McGarry's looked really, really good as well. These guys they're not, see, I struggle to say they're on Painter's level because they're not. But not every prospect that matters to a team has to be the top one at a position. And I think the hype train around Painter has been so big that it's overshadowed how good these two other young pitchers are. Griff McGarry's probably, of the three, the most ready to be called up. Painter's just super talented, so you're going to accelerate a guy like that and call him up at 19 if he's healthy and you think he's mentally ready to go. But McGarry's a guy that's thrown in AAA before, and the next logical step for him would be to go to the major league roster. So if Andrew Painter has an issue with his elbow, well, maybe Griff McGarry gets in that conversation for the 5th starter spot, or maybe he gets in conversation for the 6th starter spot later on in the season. If they go Bailey Falter and they're like, hey, we need a 6th guy, maybe it's McGarry. And Mick Abel is a super talented prospect. Like a lot of organizations in baseball would kill to have a pitcher like Mick Abel. Now, they'd kill more to have Andrew Painter, but Mick Abel's another guy who's on kind of the same path as Painter. They pitched a lot of levels together, and he's getting lost in the shuffle of the Andrew Painter. Again, I'll call it a hype train. He's looked really, really good in spring too. So a lot of guys have looked really, really good in spring training, and that's something that it leads me to what my point was going to be for this segment is that some teams you go into spring training and you have concerns and you have worries and guys don't do this well and guys don't do that well and you hear this guy came in overweight and you hear these guys aren't getting along and you say, and there aren't as many negative stories. Most of the stuff's positive because it's easy when you're down in Florida or when you're out in Arizona and you're playing golf every other day and you're not playing games that really matter and you're getting 2 innings worth of work in. It's hard to have bad stories come out, but it's also not a guarantee that you hear a bunch of good things and see a bunch of good things from new players and players that need to improve from last year. So my question to myself, one of my other questions today after I got through the Gregory Soto visa crisis, or tried to, was do I feel more confident about this team or less confident about this Phillies team at this point in spring training? And I don't know how you could not feel more confident. Like watching how Trey Turner plays, seeing Nick Castellanos hit a ball out of the ballpark, watch JT Realmuto swing, and Alec Boehm add some muscle and looks like he's got a little lift in his swing, and Brandon Marsh has a more compact, clean swing. And I read an article today about how Bryson Stott and Trey Turner have been golfing a bunch together with Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto, and the relationship is really developing between the new double play combination, and Derek Hall hit a ball a mile, and some of the minor leaguers are playing well and everything, and the pitchers look all right. Zach Wheeler had a rough outing this weekend, but whatever, it's spring training. Like, I feel every single week that passes with this Phillies team, I feel more and more confident that they're a 90-plus win baseball team that's really going to compete in the NL East and has a great chance to win that division, win the National League pennant again, go to the World Series, and man, as good a chance as anyone in baseball to win the World Series. So that's how I'm feeling about the Philadelphia Phillies right now, and I feel more confident. I don't know how you could possibly feel less confident in this team as far as compared to start of spring training to now. But if you do, let me know in the comments. I just want to let you know, hey, it's looking better and better and better from my perspective every time I think about how good this team is. And that's a good thing with so much on the line this season. Coming up, I need to get into one thing because I got ripped on social media this weekend, or I guess Friday it was, for a tweet I put out about that game, the Philadelphia Phillies against the Tigers down there in Clearwater. We can't be doing this to people. And it was an unjustified shot at me, or a couple. And let me kind of explain what I mean coming up as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. So the Phillies played the Detroit Tigers, and the new players on the Detroit Tigers are Nick Maton and Matt Vierling, of course, with the Philadelphia Phillies last year. And Maton had been there the year before. Matt Vierling really broke onto the scene last year. Matty Carshield. Love those guys. I saw Nick Maton up at the plate when I flipped the game on. And he was at the plate, and he kept turning and talking to JT Realmuto, and the dugout was like barking at him and everything. Like, not like barking as a way to say talking. No, they were like legitimately like barking like dogs at him because his nickname was Wolfie, because he howls at people. I don't know. It's weird. He's a fun, like kind of quirky young player that was a good clubhouse guy for the Philadelphia Phillies last year. He didn't really do all that much on the field. He owned Sandy Alcantara. And outside of that, he didn't really contribute anything crazy to last year's Phillies team. Matt Vierling, really nice player, played significant innings in the outfield for the Phillies last year, had some big hits, probably the biggest one, the Josh Hader home run that he hit. So that kind of jump-started a little bit of a run for the Philadelphia Phillies earlier on in the season. Nice players, nice guys, great in the locker room, a lot of fun. The team clearly liked him. The team clearly misses them. And I just tweeted out, innocently enough, I miss Nick Maton. Didn't say anything more than that. I didn't say Nick Maton is going to be an MVP this year. man, the Phillies are going to really miss Nick Maton. Man, Nick Maton should have never been traded for Gregory Soto. No, I just tweeted out, I miss Nick Maton. And a couple of people came and just absolutely ripped me apart saying, how could you miss Maton? This guy stinks, this, that, and the other thing. He's not. First off, when did we start hating Nick Maton? What did he ever do to hurt anybody? And also, if you tweet out that you miss a player, this is any sport, but this is specifically with the Phillies. If you were to tell me for whatever reason, I don't know, I miss, I'm trying to even think of like a proper example from further years back, but like I miss Hector Neris because I don't know, the Phillies play the Astros and you see Hector and the guys interacting, or you see that old video of him bunting in spring training and saying the team needs Hector. Like, and you just tweet out, oh, I miss Hector Neris. You're not saying anything about the player. You miss seeing that guy. I was in the locker room at points last year. I mean, I talked to these guys. I was around the ballpark for like 60 some of their 81 home games. The locker room liked those guys. They're fun dudes. They're good guys. I can miss the people as a person. It doesn't mean you can miss players, and it doesn't mean that you're saying that the team needs them back or it was a bad trade or anything like that. And then Matt Vierling promptly hit a home run like a couple minutes later, and I was like, is it okay if I say I miss Matt Vierling? But missing someone and saying they're a really good baseball player or anything like that about their ability are two totally different things. So let's try and have a little discretion on social media, please, about what people are actually saying and what they're not saying. I'm not like the world's biggest Nick Maton fan. I don't have a Nick Maton jersey, none of this stuff. I just think he was a fun guy to have around the clubhouse last year. Same for Matt Vierling. And I was tweeting out that I missed him being a part of the team. It happens in all sports. You have like that fringe guy that doesn't really play too much, but is a fun guy to be around. Maybe it's a cool story. Maybe you have a personal connection with him for whatever reason. Like you like that player, and then that player gets moved. And you're like, man, I miss that guy. That's all it is. It's not that deep. So if you see anyone doing that, take it easy on them on social media, please. Very much appreciate it. That's all for today's Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you one more time for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Okay, win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Get into fantasy baseball this year. It's a great year to do it. Pick all the Philadelphia Phillies players, or you can listen to the guys' advice over at Locked On Fantasy Baseball. They'll probably give you a better idea of what to do than I will. Appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing. Subscribe on the YouTube. It really helps me out. All that good stuff. I appreciate the continued support. And I will talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.